This is News Talk 980 CKNW.
Affordable housing is still the hot subject. This is what we talked about yesterday with the Board of Trade in Vancouver hosting a forum on affordable housing. We got the federal and the Ontario finance ministers meeting Toronto's mayor this week, responding to familiar cries for the government to do something.
Now, as our senior business analyst and host of Money Talks, Michael Campbell says something is always missing from the discussion. Let's bring Mike in. Mike, more meetings on affordable housing, both in Vancouver yesterday and in Toronto as well. Why do you say that something is missing in these discussions? What exactly is the missing ingredient?
Well, I think government should be one of the primary focuses, what role they're playing in this problem. I mean, think about this. We've got record low interest rates. Well, that certainly pushes the prices higher. People sort of do it on what I can afford on a monthly basis in terms of mortgage payments. So presto, things are a lot higher. I did a stat the other day that said, you look at a 1995 condo at those interest rates at about $250,000. Well, that same monthly interest rate, or mortgage rate rather, you can buy a $450,000 condo, and I think that's exactly what's happened. But the other side, I think, is very big, and that's the massive development costs that are getting passed along to developers, in urban centers like Vancouver. And I'll give you an example. Sorry, a lot of numbers quickly, but it gives you the bottom line. In Vancouver, let's take an 800 square foot condo, give it a new 115 unit concrete building. Well, let's start with that, because the city then adds on community amenity contribution fees. That's about 75% of the increase in the land value when they rezone. But bottom line, on our little example, there's about $48,000 added on.
Wow.
You got about $14,500 in other development fees, demolition costs. You got new developments are subject to things like rezoning to meet environmental, energy, and design standards. It's called LEED Gold, which adds about $12,000 to that little unit. We also collect money for car share programs, electrical vehicle charging stations, public art. That's about $1,700 per unit. But the bottom line that you want to remember this number, it's about $76,000 to the cost before you start.
Okay, I had no idea some of those numbers. Very interesting. No wonder it's so expensive. What about all the new mortgage eligibility rules? Yeah,
that's a good point, because we talked about those when they came in the fall. And yeah, that definitely removed a lot of buyers from that first-time market. We saw that, estimates were running as many as 20 to 30% of first-time buyers would not be able to qualify for a mortgage any longer. So obviously they had an impact on affordability.
So the big question, and I think we always hear this question every time we talk about real estate or housing or whatever, is there anything we actually can do about affordability, Mike? Do you have the magic answer?
It is the question, and the reason we're not coming up with the answers, I don't think we're asking the right questions here. What you're starting to see, though, is a recognition that, hey, you only got two sides to the equation. You've got a demand problem or a supply problem. Well, come on, we don't want to touch the demand. That's the problem in Vancouver. You got in-migration from other parts of the province and the country. You got immigration, all increasing demand. You got about 2,000 to 2,500 new people per month. And here's the thing, that every projection I've read point to continued growth over the next 20 years, which means, there's going to be more demand for housing. So there's not going to be an easy fix to that. But this is the side I'm glad to hear some talk about, as really, we got to go back to government here. It's the supply side.
Yeah, not just supply, but the right kind of supply, as you mentioned.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's switch gears and talk about the proposed changes to the Parliamentary Budget Office, which sounds kind of boring. Why should we care about this?
No, you're right. And so who should care? Anyone who cares about government finances cares about how our tax dollars are spent. Now, if you don't care about those things, like the total debt or the cost to individuals of meeting the Paris climate goals, that was the Parliamentary Budget Office that put that stuff out. Things like that, well, then you won't care about this, but I think most of us do.
So what's actually changing, Mike? What do we need to pay attention to?
Well, this used to be a real, this was for the opposition. They don't have the resources, like the government has the resources to cost anything, but they don't have the resources. So now they're going to change that thing, and they're going to restrict the number of areas that some member of Parliament can ask the Parliamentary Budget Office about and get them to do some research. See, under the current rules, any opposition can ask the PBO, they could say, estimate the financial cost of this proposal or that proposal that relates to any matter that the Parliament has jurisdiction over. So that was broad, and that was on purpose, and it's been used really well. Now they want to restrict that. under at least the current proposal that I think will get passed by the Prime Minister and the federal Liberals, they now will not be able to, not be allowed to request a fiscal analysis of any existing government policies. Like, think about that. I just reading the former deputy parliamentary budget officer, Shahir Khan, saying, if they'd had that restriction in place, we never would have known about that fiasco called the F-35 jets. Remember how much those cost and the overruns were. Cost of new ships in the Navy. I've been talking about that a bit. Well, those numbers come out of the Parliamentary Budget Office. So, to me, the bottom line is this. Do we think it's in the best interest of taxpayers and citizens that government is held less accountable financially? Well, obviously you can guess. I don't think so.
Yeah, this is all.
So it's a big deal, but it's the kind of thing, as you said right up front, Linda, you kind of glaze over that. It's the parliamentary budget off. Who cares? It doesn't sound like too interesting. But when you look at what they actually do and the kind of restrictions we're about to place on them, it is going to limit the accountability for government financially.
Yeah, for a government who wanted more transparency, this is less transparency. Michael Campbell.
My personal favorite, Drex, is when they eliminated the First Nations Transparency Act. That was the act that was producing all the revelations about, on certain reserves only, not all reserves, but certain reserves, about the all of the money that certain band member councils and the government were making, the chiefs were making, which were outrageous at times. That's gone too. So, yeah, it's not a good trend.
Michael Campbell, the host of Money Talks. Catch it on Saturday morning right here on News Talk 980 CKNW. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Boy, oh boy, you talk about the scandals that we have had lately. We have had, Pepsi wasn't a scandal necessarily, but a very poorly thought out Pepsi commercial.
Yes.
So there was that, and then they had to pull it and apologize. And then, what else was there? United dragging somebody down the aisle.
Oh, yes, the United thing, yes.
They had to come out and apologize. Does Sean Spicer, the White House press secretary?
Oh, yes, the comparisons with Hitler, yeah.
Yeah, didn't guess the Jews, no. So now we've got Adidas. Or actually, did you know that the correct pronunciation is Adidas?
Yeah, well, that's how we call it in Australia anyway.
Really? Yeah. Is that what you call it? Okay. Yeah. Well, Adidas apologizing because the Boston Marathon was run this week. Very exciting. A lot of people participating.
Including a woman who was kicked out of the Boston Marathon, something like 50 years ago. Because
and ran it again.
Yeah, women were never allowed in the marathon because, that's what things were like then. Then again, Bill O'Reilly, it is 2017. She ran it and was good. She
ran it every year, and they actually retired her bib number because she was, it was such an amazing thing for her to do, and she looked awesome.
There's no rafters to put that up in, though. All right, what did Adidas do?
Well, for everyone who finished the Boston Marathon this year, they received an email on Tuesday from Adidas Running that said, "Congrats, you survived the Boston Marathon."
Oh, no.
Not cool, right? After the Boston bombing. So people immediately went online and thought, what are you thinking?
Phrasing.
Or not thinking.
Phrasing.
So Adidas apologized, saying it was incredibly sorry for the insensitive subject line.
I can understand how that would be a slight thing that would get through, because it probably goes through about, many layers of marketing. Maybe someone who doesn't even, who wasn't even, maybe that decision didn't even come from someone who lives in Boston.
Well, but I don't live in Boston, and as soon as I saw it, I thought, no, that would immediately twig me. That's not the right word to use.
Poor word choice. Like good that they were sending people emails saying, "Hey, congratulations, you did this," but to use the word "survive," bad idea.
Stupid.
Vancouver's news, Vancouver's talk. This is News Talk 980 CKNW.